2, 1. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Todd Clint's, that's right, only Todd Clint's SharePoint podcast, episode number 350, brought to you live Monday, August 21st, 2017, Eclipse Day here in the U.S. I am your host and the namesake and the only person whose name appears in the title of this podcast, Todd Clint. But I've decided to bring somebody else in. So, Shane, go ahead and tell the folks who you are.
Hi, my name is Shane Young, and I'm wearing sunglasses so Todd doesn't look like an idiot. He got off a vacation. He had a tank top on and his Bahama shorts still kicking and his sunglasses. So I'm trying to dumb it down to his level to kind of keep the show on track. Yep,
wearing my swimming trunks. So here's a funny thing. So let's do the contact information, then we'll jump into the vacation talk. So you can get a hold of me. I'm Todd at toddclint.com. I'm Todd Clint on Twitter and Instagram and Yoo-hoo and Tinder and all those things.
He's been on vacation too long, folks. You can tell, right? He's still a little. He just got back from Greece, I think last night. So he's a little off kilter. But if you'd like to talk to the more responsible, more mature one of us, at Shane's Cows on Twitter, hit me up through Bold Zebras or wherever you buy your favorite pair of cheap sunglasses.
There you go. It's a great ZZ Top song, by the way. So we got home from vacation 23 hours ago, so I haven't even spent a full day back. And because of that, that's a good segue into the production notes. I have not yet produced last week's mess, as I can only assume that it was, that Shane did while I was gone, but I will do that. I will do that tomorrow.
See, and if I was named on the show as well, then I'd be responsible for those. But since it's the Todd Clint podcast, I can't produce the show, so you should do it on vacation.
This is one of those chicken and the egg problems. I won't put your name in the title until you start producing them, and you won't start producing them until I put your name in the title. We're standoff.
It is. Is that a Mexican standoff?
I don't know if we can call out specific nationalities or anything like that.
I'm sorry.
So try to be sensitive. That's all.
Yeah, the Big Bang Theory did an episode that on all those different types of standoffs and who wins and where, and it was very technical and very analytical. And I was trying to just present myself on the same plane as those guys, but I failed, so I apologize.
You are not on the same field as those guys. I will say, as much as I love the Big Bang Theory, I've been seeing commercials for apparently a show they're going to have that's going to be Sheldon as a child. I give it 6 episodes. It's going to be horrible.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's not going to be very good. No, but on that same topic, my kids have been watching the movie where he's an alien.
Oh, Home.
Home, and he plays himself. He plays Sheldon in that movie. I'm like, this is like when Eminem won the Emmy for playing himself in 8 Mile. It's the same character.
So tell me, what's my motivation in this scene again? How do I? Yeah. Yeah, and so that's one of those things. Love Big Bang Theory. Jim Parsons does a great job, but I've seen him be interviewed on Colbert and all that kind of stuff, and yeah, he's that guy. I mean, he's got a little more personality than Sheldon, but not a whole lot.
It's working for him, so keep at it, dude.
He's not co-hosting a podcast for somebody who won't put his name in the title. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Now, the only mistake he made, though, right, is he needs to find a way to be like, hey, Amy Farrah Fowler out. I need someone that looks more like Penny. If I'm going to have this on-again screen relationship stuff, I want a Penny.
That's true. Mark brings up in the chat room, I love Will Wheaton, or I've also heard it Will Wheaton, playing evil Will Wheaton, also very good.
Yeah, that's been, other than Star Trek Next Generation, it's like that to Will Wheaton 30 years later. He kind of has a gap in there. Maybe those residual checks are that big. I don't know.
He seems to be getting by. But yeah, so I went on vacation. My wife and I went to Greece for a week-ish. Really good time. I got a good suntan. Didn't really get to play with computers much because the internet was not great where we were at the first half of the week. But it's a good time. Did I miss anything? Anything exciting happen?
Other than me having to do this show, I had to do the show with Brad Sams because he needed me for his hundreds of thousands of viewers too.
So he did, but I can't let Shane have this victory. So what I will say is that Brad reached out to me first, but I was in Greece and I couldn't do it. And I said, whatever you do, I'm in Greece, whatever you do, don't talk to Shane. And he's like, I already talked to Shane. So
yeah, so apparently like had Paul just disappeared on him all of a sudden, so he had to do like a whole bunch of shows. So he was like lining up people daily, and he was like, I wanted you for Thursday, but it's Monday and I don't have anyone in 10 minutes, so I need you now. So he was a little scattered there.
And probably the first time anybody's ever said to you, I need you now. So that probably was very confusing for you. Yeah, so Paul's moving. He's moving to Pennsylvania, and he's got all that going on. So I'm sure something came up with that. But no, it's good. I'm well rested. I'm glad to be back. School starts. Everything's kind of coming back into the groove. Sounds like you didn't mess up too badly at the podcast. Or I'm going to have to watch Brad's. I didn't watch Brad's because, again, there was no internet anywhere. So as you know, we talk about this. We won't talk about it much. But I'm a religious Game of Thrones watcher. And we got into the first place we were at was Santorini, Greece. And so got there. It's an island. It's got horrible internet connection. But I had to wait until Monday morning Santorini time. And then I had to try to find a way to get the Game of Thrones that aired Sunday night in the U.S. It was all very, but my technology, I figured it out. I was able to burrow through the internets and was able to get that working.
And the good news is it was worth it, right? I mean, that was really...
Yeah, so that was, I can't remember what the name of that, which one that was, what the name of that episode was. I don't want to say what happens because I don't want to spoil it for anybody. But yes, it was, yes.
Yeah, so when I traveled on Game of Thrones night 2 weeks ago, I used the HBO Go app, right? 'Cause I still pay for cable, sad face for me. But it worked well.
Yep, so I'm paying. I've got PlayStation View, I've got HBO package, I'm all legit. But when you're in Greece, you can't use HBO Go because it's not legal over there. So I had to find some twisty, turny ways to. And again, yeah, I'm all for paying for content. And as a guy who gets royalty checks and has written books and all that, I'm down with making sure everybody gets what they deserve.
Yeah, it's we bought a Roku, right? Speaking of topics that are not on our agenda, so we finally did that, and it's been pretty good so far. The number one use for it, though, has been my kids discovered they could watch YouTube on the big TV now. And so Dan TDM or DTM or whatever his initials are, that blue-haired crazy dude is on my TV 24/7. It's kind of exhausting. So now I'm going to buy my kids a Roku so I can put it in another room and not have to watch that anymore.
Yeah, so I cord cut back in April, and I kept threatening to blog it and just haven't. Never have. But I've got a Roku and a Amazon Fire TV on all of the TVs in our house. And so the PlayStation View and Tableau, the stuff we watch live TV with and all that is everywhere. The kids have been banned. They are not allowed to watch any child stuff on the big TV. So they've got their own little TV that they can do that with. But it's working out really well. It's,
yeah, I feel really bad for my kids, right? I'm trying to move them down here. I want them to be watching the basement. I'm like, that little tiny TV down here, it's only 60 inches. I feel really bad for you kids, and I want you to watch YouTube on that. They're so spoiled. My day we had a TV that was about this big. It was black and white, and I had bunny ears. And my kids are upset when they don't get to watch it on the giant TV. They have to watch it on the super large TV.
Yeah, my kids, their TV is 42 inches, so it's even worse. But yeah, I'm a couple years older than you are, but absolutely, when I was a kid, there was like 3, maybe 4 channels. I was the remote control. I had to walk across the room and change the channel and all that. It's come a long way.
Let's see. I had 5 channels: 5, 9, 12, 19, 64. And I think I've told the story on here before, right? That we were a Nielsen household for a few of those years. Yeah. So. Yep.
That's. Yeah, and so my dad, very electronically inclined and all that. We, so when cable first came to town, I don't know how it was when you guys got cable, but you could only hook it up to one device, and it was like against the rules to hook it up to multiple things. And so my dad had it all wired up, and there were very strict instructions if the cable guys ever showed up. There were certain things we had to unhook in the house and all that because he had all that. It was now it's Rokus and phones and everything.
Yeah, poor cable companies. Not poor cable companies. They're getting their own demise. They deserve everything they're getting right now.
Yeah, they've finally figured out that streaming is the way to go. I mean, it took them, 5 years probably, but that's where it's going.
All right, what are we supposed to be talking about?
Well, the first thing we have in the notes is that the world didn't end today with the eclipse. And not only did the world not end, but I was led to believe that quite possibly we would all be gaining superpowers when the eclipse happened. And I, as far as I can tell, don't have any superpowers.
Now, did you actually test, though? I mean, did you, try and like shoot yourself to see if you're bullet resistant? It's the only way we're going to find out.
This is true. I have not. I guess I thought there would be some. I did jump off of the couch and I couldn't fly. I did try that one. Another superpower I was hoping to have was to have a bladder that could go more than 17 minutes without peeing. I still do not have that superpower. I still have the bucket under my desk. I'm good. So yeah, it was pretty non-eventful. Here in Iowa, I don't know how it is in Ohio. It was pretty cloudy today, so it was kind of tough to see what was going on anyway. So
yeah, I tried. So I went out there and my kids got to see it at school, I guess, but we were like at 91 or 92% blockage, and it didn't get dark. It didn't, the birds got a little quieter for 10 seconds. I mean, it was a non-event.
So I can tell you, I had lunch today. One of my friends from out of town was coming through, so I had lunch with her. And just an amazing coincidence, she brought her dog with her, so we had to go someplace where she could have her dog. And there's a restaurant here in town that's got a patio for dogs. So we just happened to be sitting outside, and we were complaining about how the eclipse was a non-event. And then we're like, man, did it just get cold here? And it absolutely was. About 3 minutes before Iowa hit the apex of the eclipse, like the temperature dropped like 10 degrees. And that was really the big thing for us. And then it was...
I was out there in my sweatpants and sweatshirt. It was 90 degrees. I couldn't tell if the temperature not changed, and I was sweating.
It was cloudy and rainy here. It was not primary eclipse watching weather.
So there you go. So we all survived the apocalypse. Yep. Check mark.
I thought the Mayan apocalypse was going to be the one that got me. No dice. Yeah.
Well, I'm embarrassed to say that I had not even thought about people thinking this was going to be an apocalypse. I'd missed all those headlines until yesterday. I heard that the first time. I'm like, oh crap! I had no idea that people were worried that the sun and the moon were going to, explode and kill us all.
Yep. Because not like this hasn't happened at least once in our lifetimes, depending on where you're at. That.
I was really dumbfounded by really?
Rough,
I guess tomorrow.
Rough day for the flat Earth folks as well. Let's show a little sympathy for the people who think the Earth is flat.
Yeah, good for them.
They're having a rough week.
I did see that they now think that the core of, or that on Uranus and Neptune, that they think that it rains diamonds there. So apparently, that, I don't know, a bunch of sciencey words. I read the article, couldn't comprehend any of it. But the way their atmosphere works, and then when I guess the atmosphere feeds into the planet, right? Because they don't have a solid planet like us; it's a gaseous planet.
Yep.
And so when it passes through that, it actually makes it rain diamonds on the inside. So there you go.
I'm surprised De Beers doesn't already have a rocket set for that. I do So Dave Aykroyd posted a great picture in the chat room that helps explain all this. So it says, a lunar eclipse is when the Earth comes between the moon and the sun. So we get those, all the time. A solar eclipse is when the moon comes between the Earth and the sun. And the apocalypse is when the sun comes between the Earth and the moon. It all makes perfect sense now that I look at it in picture form. Sometimes you just need a picture to explain everything. I think...
That's might be the smartest thing I've read all day.
Yep. And thanks to Jared Shockley for showing up late. We only do this every week at exactly the same time, and it has been this way for like 100 years. And so nice of you to amble in 17 minutes after we go live.
Well, and what's even more embarrassing for Jared is he's currently complaining that we're not talking about the stuff that is on the agenda. He's like surprised by this. So apparently he's never once in his life listened to our show where he would realize that we never talk about what we're supposed to.
No. So now let's talk about something. Now that Jared's complaining, let's talk about some Office 365 SharePoint stuff. Go ahead and take it away.
So I just wanted to point out, I didn't mention it last week, but on 8.10, our friends at Microsoft released a new set of SharePoint Online Management Shell. So, those 7 commandlets that they offer out of the box for SharePoint, they updated those. No new commandlets, no new functionality. It was really just to keep up with the CSOM stuff, client-side object model stuff, if you will. So non-event, but I thought I'd mention it just in case you saw those pop up. You're like, oh my gosh, why don't I have those yet? If you're not doing CSOM, you don't care.
Yeah, so how do they update the CSOM stuff? What do they do? Have you looked at it enough?
So the CSOM stuff had already changed on the server. This was just changing the commandlets to take advantage of some of the new properties and functionality that had been released.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, so CSOM on your client side did not change, just thing I talked to.
Well, yeah, so I mean, we've talked about the PNP PowerShell stuff, and I think we don't have anything about that later on. But it uses CSOM and hides it into PowerShell, so I was thinking that maybe they added something for that.
No, it's probably warning us that really the PNP stuff is probably broken because CSOM changed out there. That's probably what they're really trying to say.
The PNP folks keep a pretty close watch on all that, so...
Well, since Vessa's the one that's managing both sides of that equation,
exactly,
I think it works itself out.
Yeah.
So kudos to that dude. Vessa and what's the other dude that
Irwin?
Irwin, yes. Yeah, those two dudes, they gold stars.
Yeah, they're doing the Lord's work out there. It's can you imagine where we would be without the PNP PowerShell stuff? I can't shudder to think about it.
I know, and the apocalypse hopefully didn't get them either. I mean, that's my real concern.
Yes, hopefully the sun did not come between the Earth and the Moon in Finland and Germany, where Vessa and Irwin are at. That's let's hope that didn't happen.
It could happen.
So I get our notes are all crazy. So let's move C down. D. I was looking through kind of the Office 365 admin stuff, and OneDrive is going to be adding a link for shared folders. And it looks like it's going to be the web interface, so that'll be good when you're poking around in OneDrive in the web. You'll be able to see when folders are shared with people and go to the ellipses and see where that's at. That is not out yet. If you're a first release person, that will be showing up soon, and I don't know if that's first release tenant, first release people, or some combination of the two, but they hope to have it completely rolled out by the end of September. And I saw that, and this is giving me a great opportunity to pimp my own blog, because I'm getting the newsletters, the admin center, message center stuff. And so I've got that blog post on how to keep up to date with Office 365. Don't go to there. Oh, here it is. So toddclint.com/O365 updates. And this is the little weekly email. So I get that every week, read through it. I'm like, hey, this looks cool. Jumped in, read about it. So good stuff.
Well, so since you are the purveyor of all things OneDrive, right? I think you know more than the product team at this point.
Nah. I just know more than you, but that's,
That's not saying anything. So when, so today I tried to upload some files to you, and, normally I do all my OneDriving through my OneDrive sync client on my Windows 10 box, but I couldn't work with our shared folder. Any indications of when we might get shared folder capabilities in the OneDrive sync client?
I thought it was there. I thought that all worked.
So is this what you're going to tell me I'm not smart enough to use it?
Yeah, so we have a shared folder, and it is in your account, and it's shared to my account. And
no, you shared it.
Are you sure?
The one for the podcast, not for the 2013 one.
Well, so I get okay, yeah. So but it's the same, but backwards.
Okay, yeah.
So I'm in File Explorer or Explorer, I can't remember what they call it now, File Explorer. And the folder that you shared from your OneDrive client shows up in my OneDrive client, and that's how I do all my working with it. So
then, does it show up somewhere different?
Nope. It shows up in the root of OneDrive-personal.
Well, your OneDrive, you must have a better OneDrive client than I do, because your...
Well, so let's not go there, because when we were having this discussion earlier, I have OneDrive installed everywhere.
Yes.
And on every one of my Windows 10 boxes where I have OneDrive that I use, the OneDrive sync client is broken somehow, and they're all broken differently, but something is broken on every one of them. So I can't claim the higher ground there.
Yeah. So I do not have that podcast folder in my OneDrive folder. I just did a search just to look.
Interesting.
So there you go. We have a different OneDrive experience. So Shane's tech support will take this offline. Well, this is things for us to talk about after the show.
Yep. So Jeff Hicks in the chat room talks about he gets by with Dropbox and Google and all that. I use those too. Dropbox is probably my file share weapon of choice right now. But OneDrive's getting better. It's not the big pile of stink that it was a couple of years ago, but it's getting better, and they're adding some great functionality. with the browser stuff and all that. So I'm trying to make it work.
And so, Jeff, I would add that OneDrive is actually my main. So I also have Dropbox because Todd forced me to buy a subscription to it.
I did.
But OneDrive is my daily driver where pretty much everything that I do lives out there. So when this PC explodes or the apocalypse takes it away, I will persist forever in OneDrive. So.
Yeah, and another thing Mark Chrisman brings up, I've got a bunch of different things, but if you get an Office 365 Home subscription, that gives you 5 different accounts, and they each get 1 terabyte of OneDrive, and it's like $75 or $100 a year, something like that. And that, as far as I know, is the cheapest way to get a terabyte of online storage. But that's for 5 people too, so that's awesome. So they each have their strengths and minuses.
That was well timed. I coughed while you drank, so there was dead air.
There we go. Just pull that out in post. Yep. So you've got something about PowerShell profiles also.
Yes. Yeah, I'm surprised. I assumed when Mr. Hicks showed up in the chat room, he was coming to tell me what a terrible person I was. But yeah, I put out a YouTube video today on getting started with PowerShell profiles. The only complaint that I've ever received about any of my PowerShell content, because it's perfect, other than what Jeff sends me on the side where it's hate mail. Right?
You're the reason that Jeff drinks, by the way. Jeff was a teetotaler before he saw your PowerShell. Now the man, yeah.
But the big complaint I get is the default settings in PS Readline, whenever you put something in quotes, right? So like strings, comments, that type of stuff. Not comments, strings. When you put strings in quotes, it turns it to this weird like dark cyan color against the dark magenta background that just, you can't see it very well in my YouTube videos. So somebody complained enough finally. I went out, tried to fix that. And so in fixing that, I realized that in order to set it to what I want it to be all the time, I had to do it through a PowerShell profile. So I created a PowerShell profile and I made a video just kind of walked people through how to do some of that. And then I guess Jeff watched it today and he already sent me over, he made a fancy prompt for me. So it sounds like my next video will have a fancy Jeff Hicks prompt in it. So very cool. Yeah.
So that's something we don't deal with a bunch is the PowerShell profiles. I've used it before. I've wedged, I've stuck start transcript in there, things like that. And basically a profile, and there's a bunch of different profiles. So there's probably one profile for whatever you want to do. There's one per user. There's one per shell. Yeah, so you probably cover it in your video, 6 of them. The only thing that I will caution you on is I've had that bite me once, and not caution you, caution the listeners. I've had that bite me once because I had something that ran a script as part of an installation process, and I had something in my profile that fired when that came up, and it screwed that installation script up, and it took me a really long time to figure out why it wasn't installing because I'd set that profile up and forgotten about it. But otherwise, profiles are great for starting transcripts and setting variables and setting your prompts, and I like having the time in my prompt. It's one of those kind of things. Love them.
Yeah, it was kind of educational. And one of the interesting things I found, right, so you mentioned that there were 6 different ones. And I actually kind of pointed out that they were there, but I didn't really get into them. And one of the reasons for that is, as best I can tell on Windows 10, the profile, the all profile one, right, the one that you put in the 1.0 folder, profile.ps1, does not affect the ISE. The ISE in Windows 10 apparently carries its own profile, and it doesn't use the profile files off this file system. And that was kind of really peeving me off. So I decided not to talk about it in the video instead of trying to explain. Read all these blog posts. This is how it's all supposed to work. But it doesn't work in the new stuff, and no one's written about this stuff in literally 5 or 6 years. So
yeah,
good luck.
Yeah, and Dave Aykroyd in the chat room reminds us all that you can do PowerShell.exe-no profile, and then it won't load the profile. You and I know that, Dave, but it was part of the installer package. I couldn't get in there and add that.
Yeah. Oh, so speaking of Dave, so Dave was around when I was kind of scripting out the video, and he sent me some notes. And so, Dave, as much as it pains me to do it, you are the first person, other than the moron that I hang out with on these shows, to get a shout out during the video. So if you watch the video in great detail, Dave, you'll get to hear your name and your Twitter handle mentioned. So, you can sue me later for all the spam you're going to get.
Yeah, all the slander if he said anything bad about you. So that's so that's good stuff. So I'll have to watch all that.
So then, speaking of YouTube, I hit a milestone. I wanted to make sure that I shared for the first time when you were here to participate.
Oh, good God!
You know what's coming.
Jesus.
1, 2, 3, 4, $5 a day. That's right, folks. It'll no longer be that. I'll be able to go right there, Todd.
Oh, gee, but that's not nearly as dramatic. Are you sure you want to do that? That's not quite as obnoxious as the other way.
I probably won't. I'll probably continue to do the obnoxious way.
Yeah, there you go.
And it was actually $5.30 this morning. I thought about getting the nickels out and throwing those up in the air too, but I
throw them
at myself.
Yeah, take out an eye that way, something like that.
But yeah, so the YouTube stuff's been going pretty good. But then today, so I released that video on getting started with PowerShell profiles, and YouTube has this new algorithm that automatically flags inappropriate videos and doesn't let you have advertisers put their stuff on there. And so it decided that my nerdy video that talks about PowerShell is inappropriate content. And so it's flagged it. And so you can complain. You can say, hey, I want that reevaluated, but they'll only reevaluate the video if you get more than 1,000 views in 7 days, which is just complete malarkey for a small channel like mine, right? I mean, I realize Dan TDM gets 1,000 views every second after he releases a video, but I mean, for me, 1,000 views takes about 2 months on a video, so they're never going to release it. I spent 2 days making a video that I'm never going to be able to make any money off of. My whole 25 cents or 30 cents I would have made off that video.
Serves you right. Nobody likes a braggart.
I know. I mean, how am I going to pay for my Tesla, though, if, So I don't know. It's kind of a little shady. So one of the things I was asking on Twitter today, and people have been very helpful, and if you, the listeners, would all help, we'd get it done in no time. But if people will go and watch the video just for 1 second, click on the link, it counts as a view. I'm trying to get 1,000 views in 7 days to get YouTube to have to look at it and go, oh, our bad. When you said color, you were talking about the color of a prompt, not, bad things on in Georgia or South Carolina or wherever those things are.
In Virginia, but yeah, it's all a Kentucky education serving you well there. So Dave, belay that order. So I can tell you, you can watch. So I saw Shane shout out earlier. You really only need to load it up for just a second. So my vomit reflex didn't kick in. I was able to close it quickly enough, so that's safe. And it apparently counts views for different browsers. So I have, Chrome and Internet Explorer. Hell, we'll even include Edge as a browser now. They all three count separately, so go ahead and do that. Dave Aykroyd says in the chat room, do you want a script that will launch it 1,000 times? Don't think we didn't already think of that, but he's already in the YouTube naughty box right now. We don't need, the scripting thing.
Yeah, it's kind of like the equivalent of sacking Tom Brady, right? You go straight to NFL jail for ever touching that guy. Scripting views would also send you straight to YouTube jail.
Yeah, Roger Goodell does not stand for anybody tackling Tom Brady. So just, yeah.
All right. So anyway, I don't know. It's
Speaking of, I had to stream my Chiefs and Bengals game this weekend because I was in Greece and it was all at a weird time because it was Saturday night or whatever. But it was all very fuzzy. Can you remind me how that game turned out when the Chiefs played Cincinnati on Saturday? Do you remember what the score was on that? How'd that go again?
No, because unlike you, I have hope in the regular season. So when our third string was playing your first string and we lost, I wasn't really concerned.
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
So yeah, that was. But that was one of those cool technology things. I've got this little box at home, Tableau TV. It's hooked up to an antenna. I got an app on my phone, so I literally just fired the app up on my phone over in Greece through the internet. Off it goes.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, right, that we've kind of getting these problems solved. I mean, I felt like 10 years ago we had all the tech in place to solve all these streaming, pushing content around stuff, but they've kind of fought us the whole way. And
yeah, it was all legal.
It's coming, right?
Yeah, it was all legal problems. So speaking of all that, figuring stuff out, you've got an article there about Amazon and robots.
Oh, yeah. So that's written by one of those famous guys. Was it Tim Riley that wrote that one? Somebody should click on it and remember who wrote it. Yeah, Tim O'Reilly. Yeah. He so it was an article talking about, the whole fear of the jobless future and the robots are going to take all of our jobs and the world's going to end, more apocalypse type stuff. And it's kind of his counterpoint to it. He does a pretty good job, depending on what side of the coin you're on, right? And,
sure.
But articulating that, Amazon is invested more heavily on automating the warehouses than pretty much any other company in the world, So if anyone should be cutting number of people they need because of the automation, they would be a prime example. And their hiring has just went through the roof, just even faster than their amount of robots have went through. And so he talks about that they do a good job. Once again, this is his perspective. And when they automate a task, they don't say, okay, we can go fire those people, save that money, and boost our revenue number or our profit numbers. Instead, they invest those people into places they can be more productive and do more human things, and let the machines do the machine stuff. And I thought it was kind of a neat article. He did a good job of explaining it. He also has some great stuff towards the bottom. If you get bored with the top half, the bottom half, he talks a little bit about the healthcare space has been the exact opposite, right? Every time they automate something, they fire all the people, and they're just like, yay, more profits for us. And that's the reason that we all generally hate the healthcare system and everything about it, but we love Amazon and everything about that experience, right? One uses it as a cost-cutting measure to grow their bottom line, and the other one uses it as a mechanism to enable more growth and more transitions and more cool new features in the world. So.
Yeah, and I will tell you, my bias very heavily leans on the side of automate everything. Jobs are going to go, they're going to change. And so I agree, and I haven't read all this, the Tim O'Reilly article, so I might be stealing stuff or whatever. But one of the counters to that is, well, it's going to make jobs go away. And for me, that is not an applicable argument, because if you look back, what were the top 10 or 20 jobs 50 years ago? What were the top 10 jobs 100 years ago? That's always happening. And that's a good thing. If you look back at the jobs that were 100 years ago, imagine if somebody would have been able to successfully lobby to keep those jobs and stop whatever technology moved on. We'd be in a bad place now. So I think making jobs go away is a good thing because of exactly what O'Reilly said. We can take people and we can move them to better jobs. What ends up happening, though, and I don't know if he covers it in his thing, is not everybody is ready for those jobs. And depending on where you're at in your career, you might not be able to grab one of those jobs.
Yeah. Sorry, Chewy is losing his mind because the neighbors are blowing the doorbell up. But yeah, so they talk about some of that stuff. The loomers was right. The weavers back in the day was one of the people he was talking about in the article. It says they were all afraid that the loom was going to put them all out of business because none of them had the vision to understand that more fabric meant they could create more clothes, and so everyone could have more clothes than the kings and the queens of the time, and it just wasn't a fathomable future for them. But it turned out to be a really good thing for them and their ancestors that the loom had been invented.
Yeah.
Chewy is not a fan of the loom.
No, very anti-loom. He hates advancement. So that's one of the things. But it's tough to convince, some factory worker who's losing his job to a robot, and there's no next level job for him in the factory because to whatever. It's tough to convince them that it's going to suck real bad for you, but your kids and your grandkids are going to love it. I promise. That's a tough argument to convince them on. But I think as a general rule, it's a good thing. Automation and all that.
Yeah, well, it's the conversation you and I had on the side on Facebook the other day, right? So with getting the new car, one of the things I had to do is I needed to get a NEMA 1040 2752 plug put up in my garage, right? I'm pointing at it like you guys care that it's right over there. But it took me like 2 weeks to get an electrician to respond to my request to even, I wasn't even asking for estimates. I'm like, hey, can you just come do it? I'm not asking you how much it's going to cost. You can make up a number. I'm just going to pay it.
Yep.
And it took 2 weeks because those guys are just so slammed. But yet, right, it's an unsexy job. No one feels like, oh, I want to grow up and be an electrician anymore. And that's where I think we're going to get ourselves into trouble. Another great example of that is my stepfather-in-law. Once again, trying to explain who people are. He is a factory maintenance guy, and he makes a lot of money because they can't get any new people to do it. And the new people they do bring in, they don't have that residual knowledge around, well, this is how this transformer from 1962 that we still have on the factory floor is wired together. So, they can't come in and fix it. And so there's a big chance that we're going to have a giant skills gap show up at some point, and that's when things are going to get really ugly.
Yeah, and I can tell you, so we moved into this house a year ago in July, and there are a couple places where I want plugins put in. I haven't tried with the vigor that you did because it's not because of my car, but I have tried to get 3 different electricians to call me back to get estimates for that, and I have not in a year gotten a single response. And this is leaving multiple phone messages. One company's got a web form. I left messages on the phone, got nothing, did their web form. I can't get anybody to call me back. I feel like I'm being blacklisted by the Ames electricians. Because again, they've got a bunch of stuff going on. They're busy and they don't want to piddle with my small little, I need 7 or 10 outlets put in. They just don't want to mess with it.
Yeah. I mean, it's what it boils down to, right? That if you call them up and say, I got this $100,000 job, they'll show up. You're like, I got this $1,000 job. Nah. Moving on.
Not even worth the time to have the secretary call me and say we're booked. Not even worth that.
So like I said, don't send your kids to college. Send those girls off to electrician school. They got it.
Yeah, and in all seriousness, if you've listened to any videos from Mike Rowe, and Mike Rowe has done some great like TED Talks and all that kind of stuff, he can't preach this message enough. It's all skills. There's all kinds of great jobs out there. Electrician, plumber, that kind of stuff. All kinds of great stuff out there.
Yeah, but then looking at the Tim Riley article, or Tim O'Reilly, sorry. I know he's a big listener. I don't want him to feel slighted that I'm using his name incorrectly. A lot of the comments are on there anti, what he's doing, right? Pretty typical internet troll stuff. Yeah. But they're like, well, I'm not excited about doing these new jobs and these. We call it a job for a reason. And I wish I could find it, right? Someone did a great little thing that kind of showed these matrices of, jobs I love. I can take those and I'll be poor, or jobs I hate. I can take, all these different cycles of the jobs. And I don't know. It's like you feel bad for people like, well, I'm not going to get a job because none of these jobs make me excited. Well, if you got to feed your family, get a job.
Yeah, I'm excited about feeding my family.
Exactly.
Yeah. So no, I think the automation's great. I think of it. Another, and I can't remember what it was that I was listening to. Might have been, so there's this great podcast I listened to called 50 Things That Changed the Modern Economy. I don't know if it was on that or not, but it was talking about the invention of the electric motor. And they were saying factories before electric motors had steam motors, and they basically had one big room that had a gigantic steam engine in it. And, just a huge thing. And there was a gigantic axle that ran out of that room, and everything that had to move somehow had to be connected to that axle. So every loom, so there was belts and pulleys, and people were losing arms and fingers on a daily basis. And where everything in that building was positioned was based on that single axle coming out of that room. And then the electric motor came along, and they're like, well, this isn't that big a deal because all I'm going to do is I'm just going to take the big room that's got the steam engine in it, and it's going to be a big room with an electrical engine in it or electrical motor in it. Because they hadn't thought that next step ahead. They're like, no, I can get rid of the big room and I can put little electrical motors at every desk, and I can put the desks wherever the hell I want. And I mean, but they hadn't thought that next step ahead. Because they had, this is how things work. And then so the same thing with the looms, the same thing with the other jobs.
There you go. There you go, folks. And there's completely unscripted, off topic, what we do best.
Yep. So I'm all for it. I think it's great stuff. Another great unrelated thing, one of my friends on Twitter, Karen Lopez, I think, linked up this great video today. It's a video from God, probably 25 years ago. I don't remember what the exact date is, but it's Grace Hopper on the David Letterman show. And of course, everybody knows who Grace Hopper is, did a bunch of great things. She is, you don't know who Grace Hopper is?
I don't. I'll take one for the rest of the viewers.
So she was one of the pioneers of the computer industry. She is actually the one who gave us the term bug and patch, because back in the day, she worked on the very first computer, which comes up to this great joke that Letterman's got. But and when you started feeding cards to computers. There was an instance where a physical bug, like an actual insect, got in there and messed up the card, which messed up the program, which messed up the computer, which is where we get the term a bug, because it literally was a bug. And then since it was patch cards, if any of the code was off just a little bit and you had to reprogram it, you had to print out more patch cards, which was a huge bit. Or you could patch the hole in the punch card and put a hole someplace else. That's why we call it patching software. So, and I mean, she did everything. She was a part of the Mark I in World War II, and she's done everything, gotten everything. But this was right after she retired, so she's 79 in this video, and so Letterman, and you never know how much of this is for presentation, but he's like, so how did you learn all this stuff about computers? And she's like, I didn't. It was the first one. Like, there was nothing to know going in. It was the first one. But one of the things that she does, and you and I have talked about this before, is she carries with her, and again, it's a prop, this isn't a daily thing, but she carries with her a nanosecond. So that's what, 1/1,000,000th of a second, I forget. And it's a piece of wire about that long, about 12 inches long, something like that. And she's like, this is the farthest electricity or light can travel in a nanosecond. This is, and so she's like, when people start asking why it takes so long for stuff to go up to satellite back and all that, there's a whole lot of these between the Earth and the satellite, and a whole lot on the way back down. And I'm like, that is just a great visual representation of something like lag and all that kind of stuff. This is the farthest light can go in a 1/1,000,000th of a second, and it's just got to get there and back. And so I really like that. I put a link in the chat room, and I'll put it in there, of the actual discussion about that. But if you go, you can watch the whole thing. It's a great interview. She gives great interview. It's good stuff.
Yeah, so now I feel like a bad person, right? Because I've heard all the Grace Hopper stories, and I knew it was a woman who had done all that. I just didn't know her name. So
Admiral Grace Hopper. Yep.
I'd known all her stories, and it's the best part to me of the whole video is just seeing David Letterman. I mean, he looks like he's 30, right? He's got hair, and he's just all.
Yep.
He's not old and mad. He's not wearing glasses. He doesn't have weird.
Didn't that a dumb bushy beard he grew when he went off the air? Oh,
that was really bad. Yeah.
Oh, it's horrible. But yeah. So for computer folks, it's great seeing one of the people that made all this possible. We would be nowhere near where we're at without Grace Hopper. But yeah, that whole, I love that whole. This is the farthest light can go. And there's a lot of these between here and the satellite. Oh,
just line these up.
That's all you got to do. But yeah, for SharePoint folks, for Office 365 folks, this is why does it take so long for SharePoint to load? Well, your data center is X thousands of miles away. There's a lot of these between here and there. That whole thing. I really like that discussion. So
I think we're ready to jump.
Yeah, I was going to say we're getting close. Was there any other ones you wanted to hit, or should we save those for next week?
Yeah, we'll save those for next week, and we'll punt them just like Matt Damon off another week.
Sorry, Matt, there's not time for you. So for self-promotion, Shane and I are teaching a PowerShell class here in September. What date is that? Don't tell me I know this one. September 19th. So that's Thursday, September 19th. Shane and I are doing a kind of our two-part deal. Shane's doing the introductory part. I'm doing the second part. $99 a piece. The full syllabus and all that at Bold Zebras /PowerShell training. If you're thinking about taking both of them, and honestly, why wouldn't you? I mean, it's just there. Get a hold of us. We'll work something out. We'll Shane will send you a signed pair of sweatpants or something like that.
There you go.
And we'll have recordings available afterwards and all that. Give you all the scripts we run, the whole deal.
Yeah, we also, on that same page, we're now offering mentoring services. So if you don't want a class, you just want us to sit down and help you one-on-one. And so the last week or so when you were off in Greece, I've gotten several inquiries about that. People are like, hey, as long as it's only that Shane guy, I would love to get a little one-on-one PowerShell learning. Because Shane has those great YouTube videos.
Except for those ones that YouTube put in the naughty box. And I am happy to go on vacation if it brings in more business. That is something I am. So I'm willing to take one of those for the team.
You're a team player that way? I appreciate that.
Yep. So before that, so the week before that, in September 6th through the 9th, I'll be in Stockholm and Tallinn, Estonia for the SharePoint Exchange Forum at www.seforum.se, doing 3 sessions over there. I'm doing Azure Active Directory. I'm doing, don't tell me I know this one. So PowerShell with Office 365. And then I added another session on OneDrive. And this is OneDrive for the SharePoint administrator. So this is, OneDrive for business and what it means for SharePoint Server, what it means for Office 365, SharePoint Online, what the clients do, what control you have, what auditing you can have, things like that. So OneDrive can be kind of scary for SharePoint administrators. So this is, what is OneDrive? How do we keep ahead of it? So again, go out there, sign up for that. Great conference.
I was going to get us off on a tangent. I'm not going to do it.
There you go.
Stay focused.
And then a couple weeks after that, Microsoft Ignite, September 25th through the 29th. You can find out about that at ignite.microsoft.com. I will be down there for that. We'll be doing the podcast live from there. We're going to bring Shane in over satellite and all that on Monday. And then Jason Himmelstein and I are going to be doing a session on migrating to SharePoint Server 2016. Daniel Glenn will be at Ignite, but do not let that stop you from going to Ignite. It's a really big place. The chances of you running into Daniel Glenn are almost zero. So don't. Lori will be there. So if you do want to run into Lori, we can make that work. But we'll be there. We'll have some kind of breakfast for the hooligans down there. We always get together, everybody from the podcast, so we'll figure that out. But that is September 25th through 29th. And then finally, November 8th and 9th, I will be in Slovenia for the Thrive Conference. And you can find out about that by going to thriveconf.com. And that is more SharePoint, Office 365, PowerShell, Azure AD goodness, but in the beautiful backdrop of Slovenia. If you've never been to Slovenia, it is awesome. Be like my third time there. Can't wait.
So you're kind of wearing out your passport there, mister. I'm going back and forth to Europe 17 times in the fall.
I counted. I'm getting to Europe 4 times this year. So I did the Office 365 Engage thing in the Netherlands, doing Stockholm. Oh, I went to Greece. Yeah. So there was this other time I went to Europe. I can't remember. When was that? So I went on vacation last week. Stockholm and then Slovenia. Yeah.
Yeah, well, in like 2 weeks, I'm going to Fort Wayne, Indiana. So, ugh.
You always got to one-up me, don't you? You always got to do it.
All right. Should call it a day?
Well, and so in the chat room, they're asking why you're not going to be there. It's because you don't have any sponsors. So if you are a sponsor and interested in having Shane, juggle outside your booth, hopefully wearing pants, get a hold of him if you're going to be there.
Is this the part where I tell you I put my pants back on? Is that what
we saw. You were not.
Wasn't sneaky when I was doing this?
No.
My legs got cold.
Yep. So thanks, everybody. We will be here next week. I'll try to get the last 2 knocked out tomorrow.
Toodles.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good week.